about tonight. So many things to talk about tonight that I had to make a list. So where will we start? Judging from the hat, yeah, you can probably figure there'll be some Christmas stuff in here somewhere along the way. So let's start with, I had an interesting question or an interesting request about half damage and poison. Okay, having stated several times about how the concept of hit points worked, agility, stamina, tricks, nimbleness, all those things that enabled you to avoid the fatal blow. Why do some things give you half damage? Well, the only thing I really agreed with half damage was poison or poison-like things, because the poison gets into your system, even though you might survive it. Read a half a dozen tales of people who've been bitten by seriously poisonous things that live through it. And there's a common thread. It's extremely debilitating. Just racks your body as your body's trying to fight off the poison. High temperatures and, flooded immune system. So I don't have a problem with if you get whacked with poison and somehow make your save. All right, it didn't kill you, but it is certainly going to slow you down. It's certainly going to debilitate you. And you're certainly not going to be the same player or character that you were before you got bit and or stung or drank it, whichever. All right, so that's what we'll start with tonight, half damage. There's not really anything else that the only thing I might apply half damage to is something of that nature, getting hit with lightning, for instance. If the half damage doesn't kill you outright, it's certainly going to fry you. And from this, I can attest personally. When I was in electronics training school in Memphis back in 1967, I climbed into a training console to replace a part and touched my ear to the live end of a magnetron, and it knocked me literally ass over tea kettle out of the bottom of the trainer across the aisle about 4 feet, and I ended up against the wall with my butt in the air. And I was feeling a little goofy for several hours. It was extremely high voltage, terribly low amperage. Okay, so I got a lot of volts, but low amperage. Now, with our lightning bolt spells and lightning this and lightning that, we're assuming a substantial voltage and a substantial amperage. Again, that would be modified by you, the DM, and how effective you would have it. One thing that always kills me is how people that have, I give one of my pre-gens has a sword that'll shoot lightning 3 times a day. And it's amazing how many times they'll be fighting something in the water, and that guy with that sword will zap in there and then wonder why a couple of his party members went belly down and floated up to the top of the water, having absorbed all that electricity just as the bad thing did. So apply common sense. If it's something that would have been terribly debilitating, perhaps it was a sleep spell of a potency that was meant to put you into a coma. Well, it didn't put you into a coma, but it certainly disoriented you and weakened you and slowed your reflexes. That's what I see as half damage. The residual effects of having somehow survived something you probably shouldn't have. Let's see, what else? Holiday games. Nah. I wanted to design a game once, Krampus, where everybody is a Krampus player around this little town, and it's how many wicked children you can find and put in chains and throw in your bag and drag back to hell with you. And the most successful Krampus wins. And other than that, though, I'm not going to touch that myth, that story, that religious icon. Not me. I understand there's a Christmas Munchkins, and that could certainly be fun because it's not, it's sacrilegious or anything. But beyond that, no. If I was going to look for a Christmas monster, it'd be a Krampus. I mean, that's one bad dude. Goes around with Santa, and while Santa's giving out presents to the good kids, Krampus is grabbing the bad kids, switching them with a bundle of switches, and or putting chains on them, and or sticking them in a bag and taking them back with me. Of course, you know, we anglicized that and toned that one down to lumps of gold in the stocking. Hardly the same as getting your legs switched by a big dude with horns. It looks like your worst nightmare. Let's see. Memorable TPKs. I've got two. When I write an adventure for a con, I try to predetermine a lot of things. If thus and such happens, what will happen? I don't make those kind of momentous things up on the spot. In an adventure of mine that I don't choose to name because it'd be a big spoiler for anybody that ended up playing that. And quite frankly, I don't remember if it's a published one yet or not. In any event, there is a mausoleum type structure deep in the bowels of this adventure that is guarded by really, 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 really heavy spells. And it's holding an undead lich, necromancer, sorcerer, really, really big bad dude. And there's a bait that no party yet has been able to pass up, that if they do the wrong/right thing, the wards and spells come down off this mausoleum. And I have written, when I'm doing a con, that the lich will come out hasted, pissed off and angry, and he's got this big mace of I don't know, immobilization or stoning or just something of that nature. I don't remember the exact thing, but if he touches you with it, you're screwed. Suffice it to say. Well, the very first con I ran this at, the party did the deed. They undid the wards. Out he comes, hasted. Oh, I forgot to mention he's riding on a night hag or some really nasty undead horse thing that, you know, breathes blue fire and horrible. And the very first time he came out, he literally went right down the line of the party, who happened to be pretty much in, you know, line abreast. Went right down, hasted. He donked every one of them with the mace but one. Turned around. The one he didn't donk with the mace got a shot off, hit him, did 3 points of damage. And of course, he came back on the night hag or whatever it was and donked the other guy, and he didn't make his saving throw. So there's like 8 players, and in 9 attempts, they all failed their saving throws and got immobilized. And of course, then he came back and just obliterated each one of them. And that was memorable in that 7 out of 8 guys got donked on the first go round. And it was fun. The second one was in one of my Arredondo adventures. And to this day, 3 of these guys will tell you it wasn't a TPK. Well, this DM says, you can call it what you like, but I consider it a TPK. As the party was going on, they were getting picked off, and they'd used up all their antidotes, and they'd used up all their repair spells, if you will, their first aid. And they got to this area where in a lot of my adventures, especially in this one particular on the island of Arredondo, the magic wanes and waxes in different parts of the island. A fireball, a normal fireball. Most of the island's normal. But if you go into a waning place, well, the fireball might light a trash bucket. If you go into the waxing place, the fireball might wipe out a stadium. So it's always fun watching them learn how to do all this kind of stuff and how to watch for it. Well, anyway, something happened, something rebounded, and yeah, those guys technically weren't dead. However, they were 3 trees with a life expectancy in the wild of somewhere between 250 and 325 years. I considered that a glorious TPK. They claim up and down it wasn't because they're still alive in trees. I said, yeah, until the rotworms or the termites or something else get you, you're a tree. Okay. Technically, you win. You're alive. All right. Memorable TPKs. That was for Jolly, by the way. Jolly, I hope you enjoy that one where they turned them into trees. Christmas memories. First one, I have 2. I hope to get through the second one at the very end, and that's why I saved it to the very end, because it's still very emotional for me. First one, when I left TSR, I came to Partha here in early 81, and it was 81. Anyway, first Christmas I was here. Everybody's running around the plant in Partha, and I was in a part of the building at the back of the plant, running around shooting darts at each other. Just old plastic, lick them and stick them, and darts. Well, Partha had this tradition called the Christmas Wars, and each year it escalated. When the first year it was just little old dart guns that we were buying at the 5 and dime store and whatever, and it escalated to nerfs, to repeating nerfs. To little saucer guns that would shoot those little saucers. And it was crazy because you just couldn't walk through the plant and every 20 minutes. And it's surprising that less work, it's surprising that more work time wasn't lost, because every 25 or 30 minutes, 2-3 guys would get together, sneak around and go ambush somebody in another part of the plant. And this would go on for 2 weeks before Christmas. It was great fun, and the production didn't slack. And it was a let off of steam, because November used to be an incredibly busy month for Partha. Everybody's stocking up for Christmas. October, November, and the rush was off, the strain was off. And so while they were still packing and casting and packing orders, they blew off a lot of steam with the Christmas Wars. That was great fun. Of course, I'm sure OSHA would have had a heart attack and hit us with all sorts of fines. But at the time, we were just dumb. I already talked about a Christmas monster. I'd make a Krampus, and he'd be bad. Let's see. TSR Christmas parties. I don't remember any memorable Christmas parties at TSR. When we were still a very small company, we didn't do a lot of partying. Remembering that Gary was a Jehovah's Witness, and they didn't recognize a lot of holidays, and so that kind of carried on. Now, when there became more employees, then there was a natural impetus to get together or whatever. If the bosses weren't, that was okay. The lower echelons could, the next level down could organize something for everybody else. Keep in mind that I lived 11 miles away from Lake Geneva and Delavan. So, and keep in mind, we were in Wisconsin where it snowed a lot. So I didn't make a lot of trips back and forth at night in the winter. For no good reason, if you will. I did not socialize so much with the people down in the other building, simply because we were physically separated. I didn't even know several of the people in the other building. because I'd never had the occasion to meet them. When I'd been down at the other building, I hadn't been in their department, or whatever. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, weather in RPGs. Well, that assumes that you play outdoor adventures. I find that a lot of players tell me at cons that they never play outdoors in their home thing. It's always dungeon crawls, and if that's what you want to do, that's fine. Okay, I'm not criticizing that as an activity, but if you've seen some of my published stuff, there's always some outdoor elements, at least, something to get there. Or in the case of the snake riders, there's an ordeal getting, you have to build a raft or hack your way through the jungle to get to the temple. And I like using the outdoor stuff. I like taking into account outdoor adventures. I wrote one that hasn't been published generally. It was reprinted for Texas, I believe, when they were raising funds, that takes place in the frozen north and on top of in tunnels through a glacier. And so I use fog. If they start flinging fireballs or magic missiles around, the corridor fills with fog, and now they can't see anything. If it's cold, it might have effects on, super cold. It might have effects on various things. Might make metal brittle. It might make bows brittle or bowstrings stiff. Again, that'd be something I'd kind of wing as I went along, how the game was going, how I felt like it at the time. I don't have a set of pre-made rules for something like that. I do always, when I write an adventure and I have some unusual thing, like I wrote one that, again, hasn't been published for general consumption, where you might get hugged, bear hugged by these giant polar bear things. And so I wrote up a little mechanic on how to break that bear hug in the first couple of rounds, or else your tube of sausage just got squeezed. And then, as it happened, somebody drank a potion, went out to fight the bears, and they were going to hug the bears. And so I just reversed the process. And so I had something in place where I could do that. With weather, I go by the way the game's going, the flow of the game. I don't get into rain a lot. It would be really stinky to have them sweating their fannies off for two game day, 2 play days of poling up the river in the island of Arredondo, and then have a flash rainstorm in the mountains and sweep them back down, and they lose a day. That's too stinky. Obviously, I like the outdoors because, after all, I invented the boulet, which was made to chase people and eat their horses and their ponies and dig hobbits out of burrows. So that was definitely outdoor. So yeah, I do use weather if it's logical to the setting. Like if we're up in the frozen north looking for these ice monsters and these animated snowmen that are really malevolent. Well, of course, it's fun to have melting water make footing more treacherous, steam make vision more limited. I think logic and weather go hand in hand. There's got to be a logic to what you're going to have the weather create or cause, or you're going to do because of the weather. But if there is, by all means, do it. It just adds another layer of depth and richness to your campaign. All right, what's next? Weather, the outdoors. Oh, okay. Here's one that's a little less tongue-in-cheek. Excuse me for a minute. Everybody goes, "Oh, you wave your pipes around, your vapes around, you never smoke. We never see you do it." Well, okay. Now you saw me do it. And in a second, you'll see me doing a different one. Half orcs. Truthfully, honestly, when we started hearing about half orcs, we found it to be physically repugnant. We thought in our little enclave in the Midwest, because this half orc stuff popped up on the East Coast, and then it was on the West Coast because of the fanzine traffic back and forth. And our little corn-fed, oh man, what kind of perverts are playing out here on the coast? Who has Congress with an orc? Willingly? Ew. Don't know about that. Now you're getting into stuff like, miscegenation and stuff. And if it wasn't willingly, then are you willingly playing a product of a rape? This is what we saw it as when it started coming up. Now, we later realized it was people trying to min-max, get the brute strength and the constitution of the orc and the brains and that of the human. All right, it was just one of the very many attempts to min-max out the player characters. So we really didn't understand where the incentive at the time, in our naivete, we didn't really understand where the incentive was to do that. Even if we thought about maybe they're doing it to min-max, it was like, ooh, that's too nasty to min-max. So yeah, maybe we were a little naive. That's highly possible. We were a little naive. Oh, I got something to show you. I'm going to try. Somebody asked me about this. They said that wasn't there a holiday postcard? Well, not exactly. Now I'm going to have to try and see how far back I got to get so you can see all this. I think this is what they were thinking about. If you can see this. There. Okay. That was on the back of a Dragon magazine. Obviously, Dave Trampier. That's me driving the sleigh. Jake reading a book. Tom Wam looking at David Sutherland hanging on tight. Gary just enjoying the ride. Tramp grabbing for his hat. Rob Kuntz bailing out with a parachute. And Joe Orlowski's butt as he tumbles through space. And it said something about Merry Christmas and everything. And I just thought it'd be cool to, and I, Tramp and I were buddies. And so I talked to Tramp. I said, wouldn't it be cool? We'll just give him a little Christmas card on the back of the magazine. And that's what he came up with. And I won't tell you how much I have to insure that for based on what I've been offered for it over the years. It's one of the most sought after of all the Trampiers. And Dave walked in after the printer came and gave him back all his art. He walked into my office and said, handed it to me and said, hey, Merry Christmas. And just knocked my socks off. So that's the Christmas postcard that wasn't really a postcard. And I got 2 things left on my list. No, 3, I'm sorry. Somebody wanted me to tell about We Warriors and the Judges Guild. I had nothing to do with We Warriors. They've been given their permissions before I got there. Well, they started doing some things, and somebody said, you're doing something. And so it was worked out, and they were doing things before I got there. Judges Guild was doing things as I got there, and then I became, for, I don't know, a year or so, I was the person that vetted all their stuff. I had to read it all and make sure that they weren't breaking any of the rules or violating any of the rules badly. And to be honest, there's oftentimes some really good stuff in there that sometimes ended up in the next supplement or ended up influencing something in the next supplement. And they did some great stuff. Right now, it's an absolute crying shame that the third iteration of Bloodsaw has thoroughly and completely botched the Kickstarter that was successfully funded to redo the city-state of the Invincible Overlord. One of the greatest modules, one of the greatest adventure packages ever produced before or since. And it's just a shame that he's not fulfilling the Kickstarter. I've offered and put out feelers. Other people I know have offered to edit this thing and get it out there and try to restore the glory of the Judges Guild. But apparently he's not concerned with what his grandfather and father built and doesn't care and just keeps giving vague excuses. It's a terrible shame. That was a great city, great concept, bunch of little sub adventures with little maps of all of their own. Great product. Judges Guild made some beautiful stuff. All right, what else we got here? Somebody, and you know who you are, got all over me about some missing attack stats for giant crabs. They're not on page 13. Well, they're on, the crabs are on 13, and all the other stuff's on 14, except for the crabs. So here it is. You who complained that the system had been broken all these years because this was left out of Blackmore. Here it is. Listen up. I won't name you because that would shame you enough. It has 2 attacks. It has 2 pinchers. The large one is +4 to hit and does 5 to 20 points of damage. The smaller one is -2 to hit and does 3 to 12 points of damage. There you go. Now it's not broken anymore. Merry Christmas. All right. One last thing. Another Christmas memory. And this one doesn't have a damn thing to do with gaming. It happened during a very low point in my life. It was Christmas 1969. I was serving on board the aircraft carrier USS Ranger in the Gulf of Tonkin. And we got word early on Christmas Eve that Bob Hope was coming to the ship to put on a show. Amazing. The whole ship. And this is a ship that was designed for about 3,700 sailors. It had almost 5,000 on it at the time. It was so crammed with people during the war. The whole ship buzzed and hummed. I got summoned to the duty office. Each unit on board had been given an allotment of tickets right up in front around the stage. And everybody each unit had thrown all their personnel's names in the hat, and they drew them out. And I got lucky. And I got to sit about, 14 rows back from the stage, 15, 16, I don't know, something. It was a great spot. Even though the stage was just raised, I was far enough back. It was great. It was Bob Hope, Connie Stevens, the Gold Diggers, Les Brown, who's band renowned. And to be honest, up until that point in time, I kind of thought Bob Hope was my dad's, World War II generation kind of guy and that. And I'd seen him on TV, and yeah, I laughed, but it wasn't anything special. And it was a very entertaining show, lots of laughs. Christmas Eve, it's like 10 p.m. When the show started, because he'd gone around and done 2 shows already that day, and we were the third one on the show on the thing. Everybody's excited when the helicopters landed up on the flight deck, and all these women, all these women in colorful dresses got off and went down below. And so I got the ticket. So all of us that had tickets, we had to put on clean dungarees and that in case they were filming. And we had to put on clean dungarees and went down, took our seats, and it was pretty amazing. And what made it most amazing was the very end. Remember when I told you about this ship? Designed for 3,800. We had almost around 5,000 on board. And here's the part where I have trouble recounting. You have no idea what the sound of 4,000 plus male voices, all locked in a big metal container, singing Silent Night on Christmas Eve will do to you. What it sounds like. What a profound effect I would hope it would have on you. Connie Stevens, the Gold Diggers, they're all leading the song, but there's 5,000 sailors singing it. To this day, I can't sing Silent Night in church without getting moist eyes. Because I'll never forget Christmas 1969 in the Gulf of Tonkin with Bob Hope and the Gold Diggers. And that's my last Christmas tale, if you will, for today. I probably won't do this again for about 2 weeks. I am going to do an AMA on my page and ask me anything. I'm going to start that up right after Christmas. And from it, I will call and mine material for these for the coming year, because I'd like to stay relevant. I'd like to share my knowledge of past events if you're interested. And I certainly enjoy sharing my philosophies of gaming. And so I'll simply wrap this up and wish everyone a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, a Happy Winter Solstice, Gut Yule, or whatever other philosophy floats your boat. And I'll probably talk to you again in the new year. Have a good one.